Hello, everybody. I'm Nicole from Verve Group. Great to owner of who Verve is. We're actually at their headquarters location space over 10+ years ago. We've now merged via over half a dozen acquisitions over the course of the last few years. We're now an omni-channel global company that works in both the programmatic and managed service world across mobile displays, TV, a lot of home performance and app downloads. So yeah, about what we do, what I definitely want to do. I had the pleasure over the last week of speaking with all of our panelists and was very impressed with all the different things that they had to say about consumer loyalty. We have representation across both QSRs and CPG, which function very differently in terms of how they look at consumer loyalty and the challenges that they face and the ways that they look to solve. But I would like everyone to be able to introduce themselves and we can start jumping into some questions.
So I'm Brian Thompson. I'm at Schwan's company and I lead a few of our pizza brands, so Pizza and then our first brand called Pizza Brand.
Hi everybody, JT Glaser. I am at General Mills and manager of loyalty and rewards team, so we do everything from coupons and discounts and promos to loyalty programs, which we're just getting in that. We're just starting our kind of enterprise portfolio loyalty program stuff now, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
My name is Andrea Herrera. I work at Leprino Foods in their nutrition business unit. So I manage marketing and innovation across our sports nutrition and CPG segments. And I'm excited to share how we do loyalty on B2B business.
Korey Taylor, I'm here at Taco John's, Director of Digital, mobile app, website, listing, rewards program, database, social media, and other things. Thank you.
Other meetings as
So, like I said, the way that we all deal with consumer loyalty is very different. And I feel like there's been a big focus in the last couple of years and a shift from what I hear from basically from couponing to then moving into the loyalty focus. What are, if you don't mind picking up, what are some of the ways that we'll all go through and answer this, but that you try to keep your consumers loyal? How does your data best work for you? And then just kind of explain some of the transitions and space between couponing and loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, we've been on a little bit of a transition. I'm going to try not to hog all the time, but I'm going to give you a brief background of how we've been evolving. I've been on this desk at General Mills about 3 years. It'll be 3 years next month. And we've evolved a lot since then. We're the loyalty and rewards team now. Before that, we were the incentives team. Before that, we were the coupon team, and I want to change that. Before that, we were the very sexy price and governance team, right? So as you think of a central team where marketers are choosing whether or not they're going to spend their dollars with you, that's not a very compelling place to be sitting, especially when there are a million ways for marketers to spend their money, and there are a lot sexier ways for marketers to spend their money. So we've been on a little bit of a journey. When I started, we were about 80% print, so think on-pack coupons, think newspaper FSIs, things of that nature. This year, we're about 95% digital, and as I mentioned, we launched our first loyalty program last summer. We've been live for 10 months, and we just got our 2 millionth member, which is super exciting. So it shows us that there's a need in the marketplace for that. So I think that the primary answer to your question is we have to meet consumers where they're at, right? There's a variety of reasons we've been evolving. One of those, many reasons, is that consumers expect digital first experiences. And when you think about where the industry is heading, you know, we had a really good conversation with a professor from the Harvard Business School, and we are about in the US 5 years behind where China is from a retail, grocery, and e-commerce perspective. China's about 50% e-commerce right now from a retail grocery perspective. We are at 20. So when we think about how fast we might potentially evolve, we have to start thinking about when and where and how we show up to meet those changing consumer needs as well. And you know, the second part of your question was, gosh, how does your data work for you? We've been on a data journey. We partnered with Fresh Rewards to launch this loyalty program, and through that partnership, we're actually getting 62 million lines of data a day. We get all purchase behavior. It's not just general purchase behavior. It's full basket, and it's beyond retail. So we've always had the ability to target Kellogg flyers, for example, to buy General Mills cereals. We are now targeting McDonald's breakfast flyers to buy General Mills cereals, Meal ingredients, and all other things in our portfolio. So we have to have the data work harder for us to understand the needs of the consumer kind of across the board. And we also have to get smarter about the offers that we're bringing forward, and the data is allowing us to do that. It is showing us what's compelling, what's efficient, what's effective, and we have to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'll take this kind of from a brand standpoint, right? Brand perspective. That's really how I think it's structured in my day-to-day life. And you reflect on it. I mean, brands are fundamentally loyalty devices, right? I was talking to high schoolers last month, and I started by saying, what is a brand, right? And after a long pause, somebody said, a brand is a promise, right? I took her information out later, but she was right. I mean, a brand's fundamentally a promise, right? It's a promise for a certain products, a promise for a certain association, experience. Brands are promises, right? And if promises are kept, you get loyalty, right? So if that promise is relevant to a consumer and you keep that promise as a brand, that's how you drive loyalty. So I'll kind of, I won't touch as much on the data piece. Data is a part of our world. It's totally great, right? So everything is data informed doesn't mean there's not art as well, right? So playing that gray space between what data tells you and what we intuit, right? Marketers are also consumers, right? Why do you buy the things you do? Why you're a consumer buy the things you do? Right? So I'll stop there. Again, I don't want to hog more time, but the brand world is fundamentally a
Casey, when we spoke, you talked a little bit about how your focus is building on creating a repeatable occasion that's meaningful to them. Big driving loyalty like through the app. Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. We're referencing the different occasions for the guests. Yeah, so I think one of the big struggles everyone here has with rewards is probably discount, right? Like serving them a discount, hoping that the guest doesn't kind of associate your brand with discounts, associate with just another, hey, I'm going to choose this brand because it's a discount is better for my wallet, okay? I think there are brands out there like McDonald's and, other brands that are cheap, and so that's why guests choose them. But I think one of the big things for Taco John's here is we want to drive not only our flavor profile, but our better ingredients. And then we also have to find a balance there with discounting, with couponing, with the rewards program. So what does that look like for us? Essentially creating those occasions for the guests to choose us, whether that's driving frequency, downloading our app, being a rewards member, following us on social media. But through the rewards program, it's really about creating relevant occasions for the guests, painting that picture, relevant storytelling, things like that. So in a marketplace where you're constantly, fighting with giants that are just driving a better discount or a better deal, why would the guests choose you? So we do that through the app, through the rewards program, and you're really telling a more relevant story on social media that easily connect with.
We do that when we talk about how operationally you're very much involved in what's happening in store so that you can ensure that in-store experience is something that's repeatable.
Sure, yeah. Any QSR brand, especially here at Taco John's, we work cross-functionally a lot with our operational partners. If they're not pushing our mobile app in stores, checking in the guests, making sure that they know the rewards program is available, then it's hard to tell that story. So really connecting one-on-one with our cross-functional partners like our operations team, like our training team, getting them to tell that story to our team members at our 400 locations, and then basically getting the team members to connect personally with the guest to drive that occasion, whatever it is. Yeah?
And I wanted to give you a chance to see as well. When we spoke, you talked about when you went through just historically your experience in this space and some of the different things that you did. And I'd love to talk about, when we're talking about consumer loyalty, one of the things you leaned into was how you were monitoring reviews and putting your ear to the ground to hear exactly what the consumer was saying. You weren't just listening to what the consumer was saying, you were responding both for the good and the bad. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it seems like that helps build that.
Yeah, it definitely helped. I used to work at JDS. Pilgrim's Pride owned a CPG chicken company called Just There. I'm sure if you're from here, you know the brand. I used to work on the CPG team. It was the very first marketing team they ever had that was truly brand. And one of the things when you acquire something is a transitional space in which you kind of do change the operations, so some of the quality may be affected. And we didn't want to lose loyalty from our current consumer base, especially in the area where people knew that brand the most, which is, we call it the Golden Triangle, Minnesota, Wisconsin, this area. So what we did is they were, I don't work there anymore. They're still the #1 chicken company within Madison Fresh. So an easy way for us to track quality was to go into each of the products and look at the reviews and the ratings. Now, when I first started managing that piece, it was very labor intensive because I had to actually open each product and read each review, make a report, average the ratings of the month, and then we automated that and hired a platform that allowed us to download monthly reports of what's the rating for the specific product, or what are the consumers saying the most whether negative or positive. And that definitely helped because we were able to address those concerns directly with the operations team to make sure we change things. If, let's say, there's more fat than usual on a chicken breast, we would address that. That's small, but it's a quick example. We would address that because that consumer base was not used to seeing any fat on chicken breast. Things like that, obviously, more in depth. And also to share that message with our leadership team in case any changes need to be made. And engaging with those consumers, putting reviews as they happen, whether it was positive or negative. If it was negative, we would address, say, hey, I'm sorry, here's a coupon, here's a discount, make sure you buy this, or sorry this happened to you. And that definitely helped us maintain that loyalty during that transitional part of the process.
So you can see, I'm going to come back to you. I'm just trying to get straight on. But and move to the next question. So I wanted you to talk about how your consumer loyalty lies in ranking in terms of like brand importance, because you spoke about how this is a relatively new pillar and that you're having so much success. So the intent is that well, we'll go to fulfill that pillar, but how do you think consumer loyalty across the board brings the reports and the overall brand strategies?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that in a couple different ways. One, I'll speak as a focus group of one as it relates to General Mills. We have been on, because of the evolution initiative, we have been on several years, I think it was 14 years of year-over-year decline in spend in our space, which showed me that it wasn't super important to the marketers that were making those decisions, right? But I think as you make it more relevant, as you start to tell marketers what they can do with it, as you educate people on the breadth of our portfolio and the solutions, we talk a lot about solving problems and delivering joy. It's much easier for lunchbox solutions or dinners or picky kids or anything if you can leverage 45 brands instead of one brand. So how are we starting to coach our marketers internally on the power that that holds? We're starting to see that uptick, right? We're seeing a hockey stick. We're up about 60% in spend from last year after 14 years of year-over-year decline in spend in the space. The second way that I'll answer that is it depends on two things. It depends on the brand and the strategy of the individual brand. So for example, Cheerios is really big with, we call them 1 to 90, right? People that are 1 and people that are near 90. And so how do you do that gap from the Cheerios perspective, right? How can loyalty help do that? And part of that is in education with the overall brand portfolio. I'm going to be honest too, some of it depends on the market. There are marketers, we've been on an education journey, and I've been on a myth-busting journey for 3 years. We're slowly chipping away at it, but we're a 155-year-old company. It takes time, right? There are marketers that want to spend their money elsewhere, and that's okay, but we can continue to talk about what this means for them and why it should be relevant for them. What's interesting now is we're starting to enter this portfolio nature of this loyalty program, where they're starting to not get an option in the investment, which, one, they're not super thrilled with to start, but two, it gives us a really good in the door for let's have a realistic conversation about how this can really benefit you, right? And so I think that we are seeing an evolution on the importance of this in the overall portfolio, and as we continue to pick up speed here with this loyalty program, I expect that to continue to change.
And then Maria, when you and I spoke, we talked a little bit about how your challenges are different in those pieces of category, and that many times people are buying off of just a one versus need, and how there's not a lot of loyalty that you're dealing with there. So maybe you can talk about that and how that's folding into your overall brand commitments and strategy.
Yeah, so frozen pizza is like a notoriously disloyal category, right? So we turn over about 50% of our buyer base every year. right? So we retain 50%, lose 50%, retain a new 50%, right? That's the math works. So it's a category in which consumers are buying it constantly. 72% also in a category behind the cost of the grocery store. Right? So consumers are there, but they are extremely disloyal. Some of this is I'm totally fine, right? For instance, not a problem to me if you want to buy a Tony's pizza for your kids, right? And then a pizza for yourself. That's great. That's why I have one of the brands in a portfolio. So that lets me take these battles like fight as a brand marketer from a loyalty standpoint. I'm totally fine losing share of wallet to my own brands, to my own portfolio. Team sport, right? At the same company. So that's one element. I think a lot about as a marketer, adding value to consumers. Right? When you talk about value, oftentimes people think about price. Price is one way to add value to consumers. Right? I think up to 85 cents recently. Thank you. Appreciate that. That is a great way to add value. There are other ways to add value as a marketer. Right? One of those ways is providing humor, providing laughs, providing smiles, maybe putting on something beautiful, stopping consumers in their tracks and saying, this is worthy of my attention. So I think if you think about holistic loyalty, you can add value to consumers in so many ways, right? Product, brand, incentives, but something we don't spend a lot of time in is what are those messages that are worthy of consumers' attention, and how do we play in that increasingly meritocratic space of really smart and clever marketing.
Sure, yeah. Taco John's, we just launched a brand new rewards program last year. We were on a kind of frequency punch card program for a long time, and we got a lot of feedback on, hey, when are we going to get that new program? We also got a lot of feedback on, I love the old program. Why did you switch the program? So
We were able to implement some of the changes from the old programming to the new, or?
yes, actually. So we've got a points-based program now. It was, like I said, a punch card kind of program before, but we just launched some really great technology with our partner punch card tech called Challenges. So one of the kind of bits of feedback we heard about our last program was, hey, I just want to visit 3 times to get a small combo. That really wasn't driving the message that we wanted to connect with our guests through rewards and loyalty for. So we transitioned to that points base, but we launched Challenges about 2 months ago now. We kind of added a frequency play in. So there are frequency challenges now that are launched through the Challenges parts of our app through Punch Card Tech, which is just really fun. It basically brings that frequency piece to the guest that is kind of missing it through the points-based program. But that just went live, and then we have a brand new challenge coming in to everyone's app on June 1st. So if you enjoyed the food today and you're going to come back, please download the app, and you can see how Challenges kind of plays out. It's very fun. And we also have some big competitors that are launching challenges as well. And we were able to beat them in market, some pretty big giants, and beat them. So that was great. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm going to add something on the B2B side. It's a bit different because most of your consumers or your end users are operators and companies. So on the operator side, on the Leprino food side, the cheese side specifically, we saw a lot of cheese for pizza all over the world. Yeah, to Schwan's too. It's how do you motivate buyers and operators to keep using your product. So there are different programs that we do have for specific brands within our portfolio. So incentives like Andrea previous slide, also trips or buy 10 cases get one free, things of that nature. Although it's not as fancy and fun as when you're in the CPG world, but there are definitely things you can do to motivate that purchase and ensure that people at the plants, the ones that are really making the product, or even at the restaurants, fall in love with your brand and always think, oh, Leprino Foods has the best cheese board.
So what do you guys think looking into the future? So the last couple of years, apps get the stars, the cheese are looking a bit focusing
building out other apps. There's going to be a lot of saturation out there. How will your respective companies continue to use technology and data to stay ahead of those trends and move beyond, like, into phase 2 of their loyalty programming? It's a tough one.
AI, right? So Barry mentioned it a little bit this morning, right? And I think we all heard the conversation apparently. But AI is going to change the way we market fundamentally, right? I think that we've been living in a guess and check marketing world for as long as marketing has existed, right? So we think this is our consumer, we think this message will appeal to them. Didn't get it right? Let's run the model on the back end, right? See what the sales lift was. We are moving into a world where the marginal cost of infinitely customizable content is going to 0, right? So that is going to change everything we do. Right now, you're lucky if you can customize a banner ad in 3 ways, or maybe 3 different consumer segments. That feels great. But we will be talking about not A and B testing, but A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing through Z for as far as you want to take it, right? So infinite combinations of content and consumer pairings that are going to run extremely quickly and automatically and be adjusted automatically and find those areas of resonance. So it is here already, right? It is coming. I encourage everyone to get really, really smart on how technology works. It's not a panacea, right? It's not going to replace those sparks of creativity, those connection points. That is going to be the job of all of us in this room. But in terms of finding those small ways that a message can hit a little bit harder, be a little bit more resonant, be a little smarter, tweak the consumer slightly. We're going to be living in an entirely different world here. I've been shorting my estimate of learning more about this in the next 3 years, 3 months, tomorrow. It's happening.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There was a group of folks from General that got to go out to Washington for a couple days and talk to some folks at Microsoft about how they're starting to incorporate AI in products that you use every day at partners. And I'll say a couple things. One, I think the general consensus coming out of that is I have never been more convinced as a marketer that the way that I work, what I do for a living is going to drastically change within the next few years, not 10 years down the road, really quickly, right? But it's not going to replace some jobs, to your point. And I think to add both AI is not going to replace any of your jobs, but people that know how to use AI will. And so think about that as you march forward into the next several months. And we talked about that a little when we spoke last week. I think that the data is going to be infinitely important. To your point, the number of permutations. I ultimately don't want to be designing any models, right? If we're thinking about value content, I want the machine to have 90 of them. I want it to test them out with 2 million people, and I want it to use the 5 it seems best and most efficient and most effective to work the hardest for general use.
I'm going to say on the restaurant business side where you work with restaurant operators, developing websites that directly reach them, talk to them, they can address their issues. For a specific brand, let's say we have a brand called Bacho within the Leprino Foods. There's a Bacho website that's catered towards operators. So they're able to talk about any issues they're having or even learn how the product works, and we can directly do that and kind of also track how much you're buying. But it's an all-in-one offer that we have that's very recent for us. We're starting to get a little bit more digital. We are a company that's over 50 years old, so we're slowly but surely starting to, get more modern. But also, since we work with customers so much, customers like Nestle, Danone, part of making sure that they remain loyal is for them to know that we're there whenever they have an issue. And when you're shipping containers globally from the United States to China, or whatever it may be, and there's an issue, how do you make sure to track that when it actually happens, rather than hearing back a day after and then going back and forth? So the development of scorecards that help you track the level of whether it's good or bad delivery, and then making sure you address those issues, also allow for a B2B company to keep that loyalty and that trust from that customer. So digital AIs will definitely help with those scorecards.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think one of the big elephants in the room here, one of the really important things is not everyone's going to be able to afford AI also. budgets, I think, are super important. You know, we would all love to have this crazy huge tech budget, you know, and make these investments that we can, but being smart about the data that we already have. There are a lot of different partners out there. One of our partners that's developed, you know, one-to-one micro-marketing to reach hundreds of thousands of guests that we already have. So I think it's making the most of what you have. AI is going to be awesome. We all can get our hands on it. I think that's going to be great. But it's really taking the budget that you have, investing it smartly now, and the data that's available and the tech that's available. You know, just going to different conventions and conferences and making connections here and learning from other brands what they're using, if they're willing to share. And really getting that, building those connections and getting that access, because I think, you know, having a limited budget and just making the most of it and really utilizing it in the best way possible to future guests is something it's always going to be important, at least for us and probably everyone in this room. So, yeah.
Having a limited budget and doing the most of it falls in line with most American households. Putting ourselves in their shoes. So that's all the questions that I have. But does anyone in the audience have questions? We covered everything. You all are experts in consumer marketing. Good.
This is for anybody who has this out there, but American brands from an avid loyalty perspective that are asking their customers to have a subscription to their loyalty program. So, question on, you know, what your thoughts are about asking your customers to pay. Obviously, if you're going to see kickbacks on what you get, like, it's come into our location a certain amount of time, you're get a discount automatically. I think my initial thoughts on it is that they're probably not making money on a subscription, but they're potentially keeping their customers for their competitors. So, thoughts on
Yeah, I haven't reflected on that a ton, but I think you're partially right. I think where my head goes first is make it an option. If you require it, then it gives an official fee, and if you make it an option for the most valuable consumers. Because there are going to be, it's about the right, there are going to be consumers that want to be on the forefront of everything. They want these exclusive product offers. They want, right? And they are going to be wanting to pay for it. And I do think you can make money from the subscription itself, depending on your pricing strategy, right? But I think that I'll talk about what we do. I think it would probably not work for us to have that be this whole loyalty engine for General Mills. But I do think you're going to be companies, you're going to see companies that are successful with it. I think you're going to see companies that struggle with it too. I think, you know, I think of some companies that I've interacted with personally that are outside of the food and beverage space, like Uber. I'm not as loyal with Uber as I used to be when I could get points for all my rides and points for all my pizza orders, and I'm not going to subscribe to Uber one because we won't go into that another time. Right? But I think that you're going to find kind of, it depends on your brand and your brand value proposition and where your customer is.
Yeah, I'm going to add something, and this is not based on any of my work experience, it's based on me being a consumer. Herrera has their unlimited sip club. It's $9.99 a month, and you get all the free coffee you want, with tea and refreshments. I don't know how they make money out of it, because they offer a free month, and then you can cancel it. So that's what I do. I get it every month, and then I cancel it. So I'm sure a lot of consumers are doing the same thing. So I really don't know how they're making money. I think it's, to your point, just to make sure they get a footprint. Those people going into the store, and then probably buying something else. But they're hooked with it. It's also a great PR play. You know, a lot of brands haven't really successfully done it yet. So if your brand is wanting to get into that space and can promote it with a great PR strategy, it's a great way to get it out there.
for brands that maybe newer at building loyalty programs, compared to some of the other brands have in the room? Like, how did you make the strategic decision to like build versus buy? Thinking about the various technologies available and the different ways that you can approach that building your own loyalty.
I'm happy to jump in, but I realize I don't do first every time. So yeah, we launched ours about 10 months ago, and we had a lot of conversations around it, right? I think that the biggest things for us were speed to market and cost, right? So because we have so many brands, we have brands that have experience building those apps from scratch, and the amount of money and time invested was significant. We own Blue Buffalo Pet Food, right? And the Blue Buddies app that launched just a couple years ago was expensive. I'm not going to quote it, but it was an expensive app to build. And they're seeing slow adoption as a result because they had to focus all of the time and energy on the construction. We sold ours we decided to go with a third party. We sold ours in February, it was live in July. And we got to focus all of our money, time, energy on the experience and the engagement versus the acquisition because they have built in user base, which to us was the right decision. But it depends on your brand, your company, and where you're at.
Yeah, what I'd say is the danger, so great marketing has a distinct perspective, right? And brands should feel a certain way, and that should be, like, great marketing makes choices, right? Tough choices. And so I actually took the Herrera lab. I had too long, sorry. But it feels like walking through Herrera store, right? I mean, the script, the color scheme, it feels like an experience of walking through Herrera store. I think counterexample for my own brand, we are now a direct-to-consumer company, frozen pizza. It's been a wonderful journey and experiment. But I don't love the fact that on our website, when you click order, it takes you to a Shopify site. I don't love that, right? Because it feels like it takes you out of our brand out of a very intentionally built and creative experience. So that's an anchor for us, right? So those are my only comments on the brands.
Yeah, also in a previous life, I worked for a sports protein bar brand. I've done a lot of things in my short life. And we did have a subscription, we did not charge for it, but we just wanted to make sure that that customer, that consumer, felt like we were treating them like they were special. And that also helps create that loyalty. We would send them insights on, do you want to try this product before anyone else does? Do you want your feedback? How can we make this better before it launches to the market? So that just helped us engage with them. It also gave us a lot of free consumer research because we would just show them the product and then we would get feedback for free. But it helped them feel like they were part of the brand, and that just increases their loyalty tremendously. And then the word of mouth reaches out, and then they start sharing on Instagram. It's kind of like a ripple effect, but even having subscriptions that don't require any payment are very good tactics too.
It definitely depends on the brand. Custom versus white label, I think, is a big conversation going on right now. A lot of big brands are moving back to white label. The custom space is a lot of the developers are moving into AI. There's a shortage of developers. When you build completely custom, you've got to think, okay, I've got to bring on my own developers in-house. I've got to bring on, my entire IT sector, programmers. I think it's just a lot. If you can support it, I think that's awesome. But, even looking at a lot of the custom space right now, I spoke to a bunch of different vendors a few weeks ago, and they're in a development freeze because a lot of their developers are leaving or they're getting paid much more to go work at an AI engine, things like that. So, I think you're going to see a lot of brands moving back to white label, and then they're really investing in their tech. So if you can find a great white label partner that's able to completely, customize an app for you, even though it's on their white label platform, you can get in and make any updates or changes you want without hitting a development freeze for 17, 20 weeks, something like that. So I would say white label is the way to go right now.
We're going to break if there are no more questions.
Is there any questions?
Well, thank you all very much.